This is Smithy.tv.
Hi, this is Kenny Robinson with my special guest Steve Kerzner, creator of Ed the Sock. This is Breaking Down the News. If you've been checking us out there for the past few weeks, almost a month of these podcasts, well, because you're prod for answers and questions of this podcast, we try to talk about things that are in the news and current events, and we don't really care much about facts and information as much as opinions.
All of a sudden, we're Fox News.
Well, you can't beat their numbers.
Well, no, and the thing that Sun TV didn't get right, and this isn't the topic, is Fox News, if you watch it, is actually entertaining in the way they present the information. It's not just and that's something that they missed the nuance that TV still has to be TV.
I think Sun News basically was too connected to their Sun readers and the people that write the comments after every
yeah, and you
Facebook.
Can't watch Sun News on the subway.
No.
Yeah,
and
where they read the Sun paper.
And they didn't have Sunshine Girls on Sun News.
Yeah,
but,
that would have sold it.
I always felt the thing with watching Fox News was, to me, it reminded me, some of their newscasters reminded me of Sunday school teachers, how they would just tell you some remarkable thing like a man lived in the belly of a whale for how long, and then he came out, and you're just supposed to go, wow. And they almost drop it to you like whatever they tell you is the gospel.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of their followers that, Obama is so born in Kenya. I think because they take this, they have the same mentality and they take everything Fox News as the same way as a 7-year-old, hearing all these fantastical Bible stories for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wow.
It's like a little...
And this is being told to me by an adult figure who I'm supposed to trust, so this must be true.
And there's two of them. There's a man and there's a lady both, and they're tag team. They got their story together. A boy killed a giant with a slingshot?
Didn't kill him with a slingshot, technically. Killed him with a stone from the slingshot. Just having the slingshot wouldn't have done him much good.
Slingshots don't kill people.
Stones kill people.
Well, actually, the sword that the giant dropped...
that he used to cut off the giant's head with.
Yeah.
That was a bit extreme. The guy had already been ashamed. Remember Drago in that Rocky movie? He'd already been embarrassed by being beaten.
Well, maybe the early Bible was written by early Sam Peckinpah bloodlines, where they just said, we gotta have a head here, we gotta have more gore, or nobody's gonna want to read this book.
Yeah, I think they're studying the lineage of Sam Peckinpah now to see if he was a biblical scribe in his past.
Hey, if you ever watch the Wild Bunch, you got to know it's almost a religion for those of us that love the action western ones. But well, speaking of believing what you're taught and what the Bible has taught us and what people believe are right, right now there's a lot of shit hitting the fan in Ontario as Premier Wynne has introduced her new sex education for the schools program, and a lot of parents are all up in arms about it, and some have never bothered to read what they're being taught. And I just know that I learned about a lot of the things about sex education. I learned about it from some older dude named Willie on the playground.
How much older was he?
He was older.
That's the issue. When you tell me an older guy named Willie told you about sex on the playground.
He was 2 years older.
All right, 2 years.
And he says,
what? He didn't have a van.
No, he didn't have a van,
right.
But he had magazines that he stole from somebody.
Yeah.
And said, you ain't never had no pussy yet? And, and he might have been 11, and, no, it's good. So it's like, damn, we're shut out on this one.
The problem is, with the issue, there's more heat than light. It's a lot of, first of all, whenever the issue of sex education comes up, parents freak out. They say, I should be the one to tell my kids about sex. You're not gonna, is the bottom line. You're not going to.
Then why haven't you?
And why haven't you? You're not going to tell your kids about sex. Let's face it, by the time parents are ready to tell their kids about sex, by the time they think their kids are ready to hear about
it's too late.
The kids have known about it already from, as my family used to say, on the street.
Like just about my friend Willie,
on the street.
That's
it. This whole nonsense that they're teaching classes on how to masturbate, and that they're going to ask the kids to masturbate in class, and they're teaching them about the positives of oral and anal sex, and telling them to stick a finger up their ass. This is what people are believing because there's propaganda spreading this. None of this is true. They mention, I mean, sure, parents want to tell their kids about sex because they want to tell them masturbation is evil, so the kids can go around with body shame the rest of their lives.
Or stop putting it in your socks.
Yeah, I have to do the laundry.
I've got 7 single socks with no mates, and they're all fucking hard.
Yeah, they're crunchy. They're, I don't know what they think they should be the ones to tell their kids about sex. I think what they mean is they should be the ones to not tell their kids about sex. And if you remember sex ed? I remember sex ed. It was taught by a gym teacher 1 week a year.
I think our class teacher had it, but this is the fallopian tube. And
it was so technical.
Ovary. Yeah.
It was like looking at X-rays. Nowadays, I understand it's more about accepting your sexual orientation
and other people's sexual
and stuff like and the idea that somebody in class would be told that a gay lifestyle is just normal. Guys, hey, I think I'll try that. Gay doesn't work that way. It might allow a gay person to feel more comfortable with who they are.
Not suicidal.
Yeah, not suicidal. 13. Or go the other direction where they go so flamboyant and over the top because they're acting out. If it allows somebody who's already gay to be more comfortable and normalized with it, great. It's not going to turn anybody gay. No one ever said, hey, that gay thing, that's a great idea. I think I'll try. Either you're turned on by it or you're not. Either,
or you're just trying to simply tell other kids not to bully the kids that seem a little bit different than yourself.
And the whole thing about teaching about oral and anal sex, what they're teaching them apparently is that oral and anal sex are high-risk activities.
Oh, I see. That's why the school should do it, because I would have taught my kids they are great forms of birth control. See, that's why I'm in favor of Wynn's program,
Yeah, but your kids already would have known.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think I might have mentioned it already. Nobody ever gets pregnant taking it in the ass, son. So.
Well, there's leakage, and there's a neighbor right there. But it's unfortunate that what's happening is it's mostly ethnic groups that have more newly arrived than ones who've been here longer. Still very tied to traditions from where they came from. Still, since some of them, English isn't their first language.
Right.
The kids are fluent, but they themselves not so much. They're subject to a lot of misinformation because they can't go necessarily read it themselves. They don't watch the news from local news. And I'm not stereotyping. I'm saying I've been places where you go in and certain families, they're watching via satellite news from home.
From back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're subject to all kinds of wild rumors. And I understand, listen, if somebody was telling me that they were teaching kids
anal sex
and telling them to sit and masturbate in class, I'd say, okay, maybe you've stepped over the... First of all, there's no teenager that needs education in how to masturbate.
Well, I was a late learner. I had a girlfriend that had to show me for the first time. And then when first time I went, did you break it? She went, no, that's cum, silly. But
you made it spit.
You did something to it.
Now, was this girl the same age as Willie?
No, actually, this girl was a year younger than me, but she's about 15 years older when it came to that.
Yeah, I wonder what she's doing now.
She just retired. She's been a professor. And
she continued to teach people her
education.
Whole life.
That was her thing.
Yeah, she started very young.
Hot for teacher. So, but she by the time she reached the age now, she's so prim and proper and decent. But it was it was her wild years. So
I think the benefit of teaching sex education in school though is it allows kids to realize that sex isn't something that has to just be dirty. Mm-hmm. It has to be hidden, and it has to be something you keep from all adults. They can understand that, no, it's a topic you can talk about. It's a normal part of human engagement. It's not something that has to be considered seedy or dirty, and that way, the girls who participate in it aren't sluts just because they have sex. It's a way of saying, we address this because it's a part of living, and it takes it out of just the gutter or the street, and it allows kids to see it in a context whereby this isn't something where I'm asserting my adulthood by rebelling. They're saying you don't have to rebel. We understand this is part of who you are and what you do.
And I really think it's better off being taught by teachers who have to fear for their jobs as opposed to a parent.
Yeah.
Like I have a lady friend. I haven't seen her in years, but we were at a party once, and she used to bring her daughters with, and her daughters for the they were like 14 or 15. Probably shouldn't have been there, but they were.
Yeah.
They were showing the fellas how their mom had taught them to put a condom on with their mouth. So the guys are sitting there toking and drinking while these girls are like taking a banana and the guy's like, whoa, can you do another one? So, it's like, well, give her a toonie first if you want to see that trick
You
again.
do another one? This time no banana?
But, they were teaching them that, and
there's such a thing as letting people be a little too comfortable with sex.
But then again, this mother's saying, look, someday, you may be in a position where a guy wants a blowjob, but you better have a condom on him. So she was teaching her daughter the best she could.
Kenny, if the word blowjob had ever come out of my mother's mouth, I think I'd still be in therapy.
I think...
Come on. Let's face it. That's not something you ever want to hear from a mother or my father, quite frankly. What'd you say? I didn't hear you correctly. There's certain things you don't want your parents to talk to you about. I remember my parents, my mother gave me this book on it, and it was written, I don't know when it was written, in the 50s.
Okay.
And it talked about petting and things and it had diagrams of these really prim and proper kids who...
holding hands on a date
a
picnic.
Yeah, it was, go on group dates. And this thing was so out of date by the time I got it. And it was, I think, embarrassing for her. And it was embarrassing for me even to have this thing raised in this manner.
See, that's why we need our school to explain to the kid with his jeans around his ass that, maybe you should wash your hands before you finger the little emo girl that you've taken out. It's...
I don't think that's going to be a lesson plan topic.
I think it would be. I mean, okay, perfect example. How many kids are committing suicide now, especially girls, because they sent around some topless pictures or, whatever, and then whoever they sent it to, buddy goes, hey, chick, but nowadays, in the old days when I was coming up, if you had a Polaroid, you was bad. If you had a Polaroid of a girl's vag or something, you were top dog. But you could only show so many people at one time because there's no fucking internet.
Well, and also the Polaroid, they tended to fade with handling.
Not if you didn't let anybody else hold them. You just let them look. Say, no, you can't. No, just look. You can't hold it. Can't touch.
What they need to do is they need to teach teenage girls the nature of teenage boys. That teenage boy gains no prestige by having your naked picture. The teenage boy gains prestige
by showing
the naked picture.
Yeah.
And as much as you think he's trustworthy,
he's still a horny little weasel
he's
guy.
Still gonna, even if he just says, hey, my best friend, check out her boobs. Because guys want to show off. Look what I'm hitting. Look how good this looks. Look what
trophies.
It's because especially teenagers, boys and girls, are trying to build their self-esteem.
And it's even worse when you're older, because then you want to show people that you still got it.
Oh, please. You get so old that the wrinkles don't come out when you rub it. Teenage girls need to understand. And the thing is, teenage girls nowadays are trying to assert their sexuality and stuff like that, and so showing how liberal they are by sending these pictures. The thing is, you have to understand that no matter what you put on the internet, once you send something out,
it ain't coming back.
It's not yours anymore.
Nope.
You have no ability to control that image. And teenagers aren't great in long-term thinking, usually. Look at the number of them that get the inadvisable tattoos. Teenagers aren't great about long-term thinking because they've had no long-term to understand context. So they don't understand that these photographs that they send aren't, a great idea. I fully believe that there are some girls who send these pictures hoping they'll get around, but have to pretend that they're upset when they do.
Hoping they'll get around?
Yeah.
Well, then they get that big scarlet letter on their forehead.
They don't care. It shows how sexy they are. It shows how liberated they are. Now, I'm not talking about the ones who legitimately have breakdowns.
Right.
I'm talking about there's exhibitions out there, and there are listen. There was all
they're discovering their sexuality and their power.
Exactly. Yeah. And listen, there was girls in school in junior high school who had boobs, wouldn't wear bras because they knew the guys liked to see them jiggle. It's like that. Bad decision making.
Yeah.
Guys who take the picture and go show everybody, they're douchebags. Somebody has trusted you with something.
Foolish.
You need to learn to understand, to have that trust appreciated. And after you break up, okay, you're not going to delete them, but don't send them around. But I'm spitting in the wind.
Because you're angry and you're hurt and you want to teach her a lesson and ruin her for life.
Yeah, don't send them. Is the smartest thing. You don't want to
don't take them's even smarter.
Well, don't take them. You don't want to be blaming girls because it's not they're teenagers. You can't blame teenagers too much for what they do because they're teenagers.
Right.
They're a mess of hormones.
Unless they're going off in a war zone because they were brought there by their dad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you really need to emphasize on the girls, don't take these. It's not saying that your body is anything you should be ashamed of.
We're not slut shaming you.
Yeah. What we're saying is this is something that you're going to lose control of. And while currently you're sending it to somebody who you want to see it, you don't know if you're going to wind up marrying that person. You're dating at 15. And think down the road, are you going to want your potential husband to see these pictures of you beforehand? And there's ways of making it work. Girls really need to be made to understand why it's inadvisable, that it's not just old people trying to restrict their sexual power and trying to put old rules on them, that it's honestly, this isn't the way to get popular. This isn't the way to demonstrate how sexy and sexual you are. And when you say that, they say, well, you're blaming the victim. No, I'm not blaming the victim.
You're warning the victim.
I'm warning the victim that you're going to be a victim.
You're warning them not to be victims.
Yeah, because if you send that picture out,
it's going to come back and bite
9.9 times out of 10, you're going to be a victim. Teenage boys shouldn't spread those around. And I'm sure there's teenage boys that don't. I'm sure there's boys that get them that don't.
And there are some that just delete them when they see them and don't want to talk to her because if she'll send me a naked picture, what will she do with other fellas?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but it's a sticky There's a sticky issue. Back to the socks that are crusty. But I think we're both in agreement. You want it taught in schools. There needs to be an institutional.
Well, it should be daddy or mom teaching it too. I think you know what we need? I think we've got to wrap it up. We're almost out of time here. I think we need to do is maybe we need to have some teaching sex education for the parents.
There's that, and I think schools should teach the biologicals. Parents should teach the when and where. And that way they work together, because parents are not ones to teach the biologicals.
No, because you know what? Like, I hope for my son, he's only 14 now. I hope when he's a little bit older, he just walks in and he finds that G spot, like Columbus discovering the New World. He just zooms in. But it isn't appropriate for me to. And son, now you put your hand in here, and right over here's a part that make him go squirt. So I mean, it isn't appropriate for daddy to do that. No. I don't know if a teacher's supposed to.
I don't, but teachers should teach how the things work, why you're feeling what you're feeling, all these impulses and stuff like that, and that they're normal impulses. Teachers should normalize that, but the when and where you use those body parts and use those hormonal feelings, that's something that comes from the home. And
I guess when it comes to the G-spot and my son learning it, well, hopefully it'll be somebody like Maggie May.
Whatever happened to Willie?
Willie's not allowed to go by schoolyards or McDonald's, drive-ins, anywhere where there's anybody in the age of 30. Willie's not allowed to go to. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had as much fun as Steve and I have. Steve Kerzner here. He's by the way, before we get out of here, what are you doing now?
Producing Ed the Sock posts video columns, editorials every 2 weeks on Huffington Post Canada, and there's an Ed the Sock show. It's 8 to 10 minutes about politics, news, pop culture, everything. Okay. And it's on a website called everyjoe.com. It's out of the States. In America, they pay you to be on websites. Wow. But you can find everything at edthesock.com. Okay, super. Thank you. Anyway, thanks for checking us out. This is Kenny Robinson with Breaking Down the News. And if you're a parent out there and you're worried about what the school's teaching your child, then you step up and you teach them.